So you know how like spices are kind of a thing now? Yeah. And how like we get really, really stinking rich with it? Yeah. And it makes food taste really, really good. Like, hey bro, can you get to the point? What do you want? All right, cool. So spices. Dude! Okay. So, you know how the earth is round, right? A little. And Asia is all the way on the other side of the world, yeah? What if we sailed west going around the world and get to India through the east? Sounds like a plan, right? I'm not sure. What do you guys think?
He's gonna die.
Yeah, he's probably gonna die. The logic works. All I gotta do is sail 2,400 miles west and then boom! India, baby.
Well, Chris, my guy, you know the world as well, like a lot of it bigger than that, don't you?
What do you mean? The math checks out.
I'm literally a mathematician. Christopher, I think you know what I'm talking about.
Well, if I prove you wrong and get to India, I demand to have an island and a bunch of gold and maybe even be a governor. No. Okay, maybe not a governor. Chris, no. Dude, you suck at math. Shut up, nerd. History has seen its fair share of mishaps, and by fair share, I mean a lot. Many of the systematic social conflicts we encounter today, such as discrimination, racism, and aggressive nationalism, can all be traced back to arbitrary judgments and policies made by people in the past. In fact, one of the most famous misconceptions in all of human history that led to centuries of mislabeling and a whole lot of colonization is Christopher Columbus believing he had landed in India, supposed to the Americas. In hindsight, this controversial hero of the American history made many mistakes, and one of them was holding on to the belief that his voyage west from Spain led him to discovering a new way to grab spices from Asia. Chapter 1. Before the voyage. First things first. Who is Christopher Columbus and why is he so important? Christopher Columbus was an Italian explorer who, after many years of persistent lobbying to different European royalties, finally got his crazy idea to sail west across the ocean sea, aka the Atlantic Ocean today, sponsored in order to profit from the lucrative spice trade in Asia. The history of his childhood is kind of obscure, but what we do know is that he was born in the Republic of Genoa, he began traveling during his younger years when he got a job on a merchant ship, and although he was mostly self-educated, he was well-read in geography, astronomy, and history. So when it came to sailing and exploration, he kind of knew his stuff. Now, it's important to note that Columbus believed the world was much smaller than it actually is, which at that time was known as small Earth theory, and that if the Americas weren't there, Columbus's outcome would have turned out much differently. But before he could even begin his expedition around the world, he needed money. In 1485, Columbus presented his plan of sailing westward towards Asia, an idea he got from the Florentine astronomer Paolo da Pozzo Toscanelli, to King John II of Portugal. But the king denied his request because the monarch and his scientists didn't believe in the small Earth theory. Of course, they were right to an extent, his math was wrong, but I mean, give the man a break, math is hard.
What number comes between 2 and 4?
2 and 4.
The prophecy is true.
In his proposal, he estimated that he would have to travel about 2,400 miles, which the king's advisors rightfully believed to be too low. Also, it's worth noting that when Toscanelli presented a similar proposal years before, in 1470 to King Alfonso V of Portugal, which was where Columbus pulled his calculations for his proposal, it was also rejected because scientists didn't believe the math to be correct. In other words, the math was wrong from the beginning. But did that stop Columbus? Spoiler alert, no, it didn't. Instead, he waited 3 years and appealed. When John II finally granted him a second audience, Columbus was denied again. This was partially because the king had already sent Bartholomew Diaz on an exploration to sail around the tip of Africa, and soon after, Diaz came back to Portugal with news of his success. thus diminishing the king's interest in Columbus's risky plan since he had already had his trade route secured thanks to Diaz's results.
Oh, your majesty, thank you so much for letting me here to see you again. Okay, so you remember that thing I told you how I could go to India, but instead of going around Africa, I could go around the world through the ocean, right? Yeah, what about it? Well, since it's kind of a rough traveling using roads through Asia, I'm thinking it's still a very, very good option we could use to zoom across the globe. Chris? You know, we can go find a new route so we don't have to have such a difficult time going through the old roads. Oh my goodness, Chris, we already talked about this. You can't just sail around the world and not die. It's gonna take way longer than you're saying, and it's so much farther too. And no, it won't. Oh my goodness, Chris, stop interrupting me. Some guy named Bartholomew already came back and said he kind of have found a route around Africa, so we don't even need you anymore. We kind of don't need your plan anymore. In fact, I've kind of said we didn't ever need it. You'll rue this day, sir. You'll rue it. No, I won't. And get your water lovin' booty out of here.
But our boy Columbus was not a man known for taking no for an answer. He tried asking Genoa and Venice, but to no avail. At one point, he even asked his brother, Bartholomew, not to be confused with the old dude Bartholomew, to go to England and ask the crown if they would be willing to sponsor his expedition. But this too was met with a firm no.
Hey, can you guys sponsor my trip around the globe? Nope. Hey, can you guys? Nada. Hey, can you? Don't even think about it.
He was widely unsuccessful in his search to get funded until 1492, when he was finally granted a sponsorship by the Queen Isabella I of Castilla and Ferdinand II of Aragon after 2 years of negotiations, which involved a lot of requests for titles and rewards once Columbus succeeded. Talk about commitment, am I right?
For the last time, Christopher, no. We will not sponsor you. It has been 2 years.
Okay, Your Majesty, I hear you, I see you, but, oh, for goodness sake, just give the man his money!
Okay, as long as you claim the lands in the name of Castile, we can sponsor you.
Done, deal, let's get it.
Chapter 2, To the Americas and Beyond. After years of trying to get European royalties to sponsor his quest, he departed from mainland Spain on August 3rd of 1492 with 3 ships, the Pinta, the Nina, and the Santa Maria. As he planned, he set his eyes westward. After months of traveling across the Atlantic Ocean, they made their first sight of land on October 12th, aka Columbus Day. Okay, let's get this out of the way first. No, Christopher Columbus did not discover the Americas. The people already living there kind of did that way before he even thought of going. However, because of the onset of globalization during the Age of Discovery, many European explorers took it upon themselves to place every new land they set foot on as a discovery for the country they were sponsored by for their expedition. This led to many misconceptions that went on for hundreds of years. And yes, that includes Columbus's embarrassing mistake that he had found a new route to India. It's not quite clear which island he landed on that first fateful day, but for sure, it was definitely very, very, very far from India, and in fact, it was almost on the opposite side of the world. Instead, he had actually landed on an island in the Bahamas. Since he believed so wholeheartedly that he had landed somewhere in India, he called the natives of the land Indians, or Indios in Spanish, which led to the Native American populations being mislabeled for hundreds of years. Said simply, the term was born out of the ignorance of the early European explorers, the first of whom being Columbus himself. And not luckily for the indigenous people, Columbus's cringeworthy actions don't stop there. Chapter 3, The Americas, Land of the Forced Slavery and Colonization. Columbus's establishment of a new trade route from Spain to the West Indies meant a new opportunity for Spain to one-up Portugal, which at the time was basically the top dog of the sea trade routes. During this time, the spice trade was a lucrative business, and since the closing of the Silk Road, which was the main land-based route from Europe to the east, brought about by the fall of Constantinople in 1453, it was difficult and quite risky to do business over the roads. With the Silk Road gone and Portugal basically having a monopoly over the routes going through Africa and the Middle East, Spain was hell-bent on establishing alternative trade routes. This is one of the many reasons why Spain eventually took up Columbus's hella crazy proposal, despite the advice of experts who were right about his calculations on the Earth's size being wrong. Now, to his credit, in theory, Columbus wasn't entirely wrong. It's true that if you sail west long enough and there wasn't a giant continent in your way, he'd have eventually found himself at the other side of the globe, given its spherical shape. However, he severely miscalculated the distance it would take to go from Europe to Asia by going across the sea. So essentially, Columbus's expedition was a failure. He promised a new route to India, but he never even got close during his voyage. Instead, he went island hopping like a college student on summer break, all over the Bahamas, and in true colonizer fashion, established settlements across Central and South America in the name of Spain. He even lost his largest ship during his first expedition, and around 10 people died during the voyage, plus another 30 or so who were left to form a colony after the ship was wrecked. And instead of bringing home the desired spices and silk his royal sponsors had asked for, all he brought was trinkets and natives he had enslaved. He would return to the New World several times to further pillage and enslave and kill the indigenous people, while at the same time taking their natural resources and precious metals. Other noteworthy feats include establishing the first Atlantic slave trade, being the personally responsible for the deaths of over 50,000 natives, pissing off the European colonists, and even the king and queen themselves. In fact, at the end of his life, he was sent over to the Americas for the last time and told never to come back to Europe. Okay, so we've established that Columbus embarrassed himself to, well, everybody. So then why do we hold him in such high regards as a key figure in Western history? Well, looking back on his expedition, though technically a failure at the time, they're now considered one of the most important points in Western history. His European discovery of the New Worlds in the West led to many new trade routes, and although he never achieved his goal of dominating the Asian market of spices and silk, because of Columbus's expedition, Spain gained a ton of profit from America's gold and silver mines, from cash crops like sugar, and from resources like lumber. It essentially became the gateway to establishing a different kind of trade within the area they were already labeled the West Indies. But of course, as we know from history, this was also a pivotal point for the Native Americans, whom Columbus essentially thought to be the most valuable part of his discovery, as he viewed their hospitality as an opportunity to enslave them. In fact, his biggest legacy is arguably not even his discovery of the new routes going west, it's not even his attempt to circumnavigate the world, which, by the way, someone else had already done. His only real legacy after that feat of accidentally discovering a new continent was his establishment of slavery in Central and South America, and being the first of many Europeans to colonize the continent. If the Americas hadn't been there, Columbus would have run out of resources and he and his entire crew would have died, cause India was way farther than he calculated. Although his entire plan was one big messy flop, with mathematicians downing his calculations every step of the way, he still carried the belief that he discovered a new route to India till the day he died, despite all the evidence showing otherwise. He was just one of those people. Putting aside all the terrible things Columbus did during his life, I think there are still two key takeaways from this history lesson. Number one is that just because you failed at your original goal doesn't mean the journey won't lead you to something just as groundbreaking and valuable. Columbus failed at his stated objective of reaching India and instead discovered an entirely unknown part of the world. And second is that while you're on your journey, be kind to the people you meet along the way. Think of how much different of a conversation we could be having right now if Columbus would have befriended the native populations and combined forces with them to grow, opposed to utterly destroying them. In the end, a similar outcome could have been achieved, and history would have been much, much, much more kind to him. I guess what I'm saying is to kill them with kindness, opposed to literally killing them. Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have a history topic you'd like me to cover next, leave it in the comments section below. Smash that like button and subscribe with push notifications on so you don't miss a future video. Until next time, set goals, work hard, and read. I'm your boy Bach, signing off. Keep smiling.